Hi, good morning everyone. Welcome to another session on air pollution. In the last class, we discussed about what is pollution, what are the major types of pollution, air pollution and its sources, and what industries are doing in order to reduce the air pollution. In today's class, we will be talking about another major source of air pollution. That is, let me share the screen with you. Yes. So by looking at the screen, you can simply say that automobiles, the major source of air pollution. Apart from the thermal power plants and smelting industries, the next major source of air pollution is automobiles. Now, automobiles, what is the importance of automobiles? We all know that they are the means of transport on land. They are the means of transportation. They carry people as well as goods from one location to another location. So we have three major ways of transportation, that is land, water and air. Most of the transportation takes place through land, and it is importantly playing a role in the developmental process of every nation. You take developed country, developing country or underdeveloped country. Every nation's progress depends on the way transportation takes place. How strong is their transportation? And it is these automobiles that helps in the developmental process. So automobiles they actually run on by burning the fossil fuel. What is this fossil fuel? Fossil fuel is nothing but a mixture of hydrocarbons. Now, this mixture of hydrocarbons, when it burns in the presence of oxygen, it helps in the movement of the vehicle. Now, the unburned hydrocarbons in the process are released in the form of smoke. Now, what can we do in order to reduce the automobile pollution? Can we stop using automobiles? No, because the developmental process will be halted. So what you can do is we can simply try to reduce the automobile pollution by different methods. Today we are going to talk about those methods that help us to reduce the automobile pollution. So in every country, in every nation, one of the major reason for air pollution is automobiles. And we all know there is increase in the number of vehicles per annum. So with the increase in the number of vehicles, there is increase in the air pollution. And this air pollution has become a problem. Previously, it was a problem in only metropolitan cities, the automobile air pollution. But currently, it is a problem that is faced by 2-tier and also 3-tier cities and towns. The bigger the city, the more number of vehicles we have, right? Now, why do these vehicles release the exhaust? As I told you, these vehicles run by burning the fossil fuel in presence of oxygen. And during this combustion process, it releases a lot of unburned carbons, hydrocarbons. Apart from this, they also release some amount of non-harmful things. So what we should know here is all the exhaust released by the automobile is not necessarily harmful. Part of it also releases harmless gases. If you analyze the exhaust, what do they contain? The automobile exhaust majorly consists of carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, unburned hydrocarbons, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide. These are the 5 major harmful content of the automobile exhaust. Apart from this, some amount of unburnt hydrocarbons, some amount of aldehydes, some organic compound, water vapors are also released in a very minor quantities. So we should understand here that automobile exhaust is a mixture of both harmful material as well as harmless material. Harmful materials are carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and the sometimes lead. All these and some unburnt hydrocarbons are released. Now, what can we do in order to reduce the automobile pollution? So every individual at an individual level can take some measures in order to reduce the automobile pollution. Number one, proper maintenance of automobiles. What is meant by proper maintenance of automobiles? Every two-wheeler or a four-wheeler should be serviced in a given point of time. We keep using the vehicles and we don't bother really whether they really require servicing or not. So every two-wheeler or a four-wheeler will have a service regime for every 3 months, for every 6 months. It should be serviced. And if you are able to give your vehicle for servicing, and that's enough for proper maintenance of the automobiles. So this should be done mandatorily. And the second one is usage of lead-free petrol or diesel, which can reduce the pollutants they emit. Lead-free petrol and diesel are very important. They are to be used definitely. This is also mandatory. And the third important thing is fitting a catalytic converter into automobiles for reducing the emission of poisonous gases. What is this catalytic converter? A catalytic converter is an emission reducing or emission reducing device. Let us talk about this catalytic converter a little more. So as at an individual level, 3 measures can be taken by every person in order to reduce the automobile pollution. Number one, you can maintain it properly. The automobile should be maintained properly. Second one is usage of lead-free petrol or diesel. And third one is fitting of a catalytic converter into automobiles. Now let us talk about catalytic converters. A catalytic converter is a device that controls the emissions. It is made up of some expensive metals like rhodium, platinum, or palladium. So what is this catalytic converter? In general, every vehicle, the exhaust after the burning of the fossil fuel, the unburnt exhaust is directly released into the atmosphere. But if we can fit a catalytic converter to a vehicle, all the exhaust that is released from the engine can directly be, the whole exhaust is diverted into this catalytic converter, and within this catalytic converter, with the help of these um, catalytic metals, the harmful material will be converted into harmless material, and then it can be released into the environment. So what we are trying to do here is, instead of releasing the exhaust directly into the atmosphere, we are diverting this exhaust into catalytic converter, from engine to catalytic converter. And now in this catalytic converter, all the harmful gases are reduced to harmless gases, and then they are released into the atmosphere. These catalytic converters are emission control devices. It is a type of emission control device, and it is having some expensive metals like platinum, rhodium, or palladium. And these metals, they play the role of catalysts. They simply play the role of catalyst, and they convert the harmful gas into harmless gas, right? Now let us see what kind of conversion it can do. The exhaust passes through the catalytic converter. Okay. Unburned hydrocarbons are converted into carbon dioxide and water. Wonderful. So here the unburned hydrocarbons are converted into carbon dioxide and water. And now this CO2 and water vapor can be directly released into the environment. Now the second one, carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is converted to carbon dioxide. Third one, nitric oxide reduced to nitrogen gas. So the exhaust majorly consists of unburnt hydrocarbon, carbon monoxide, and nitric oxide. Now what we are doing, what the catalytic converter is doing is, it is reducing all the unburnt hydrocarbons into, it is converting on unburnt hydrocarbons into carbon dioxide and water. And it is converting the carbon monoxide into carbon dioxide. And nitric oxide is reduced to nitrogen gas. So you might ask me, carbon dioxide itself is a greenhouse gas. How can this be emitted into the environment? If you compare with the harmful nature of carbon monoxide or hydrocarbons, carbon dioxide is much safer gas. So what is the function? What happens when carbon monoxide is high in the air? So we all know carbon monoxide competes with the hemoglobin to bind. The binding efficiency of hemoglobin is more for carbon monoxide. In general, when hemoglobin binds to carbon dioxide or oxygen, it is reversible. But carbon monoxide is someone who binds to hemoglobin and it is an irreversible reaction. And because of this, when a person is exposed to higher amounts of carbon monoxide, all the hemoglobin is bound by the carbon monoxide irreversibly, and this will lead to suffocation of the person because there is no hemoglobin left. Very less hemoglobin will be left for either oxygen or carbon dioxide to be bound. So carbon monoxide is highly toxic when compared to carbon dioxide. Release of carbon dioxide will causes less harm when compared to release of carbon monoxide. So it should be converted into carbon dioxide. Now, these are the three things the catalytic converter does. So in the list we have unburned hydrocarbon being converted to CO2 and water, carbon monoxide converted to carbon dioxide, and nitric oxide converted to nitrogen gas, right? Now the next one, every motor vehicle should be equipped with catalytic converter, and a vehicle with a catalytic converter should use unleaded petrol. A very important measure every vehicle should have is those vehicles which are having catalytic converter, they should definitely use only unleaded petrol. That what is the reason? The reason is lead inactivates the catalytic activity of the metals. So we have learned that catalytic converter is someone who is having some metal in it, and this metal will act as a catalyst. In the presence of this metal, this unburnt hydrocarbon is really converted into all harmful gases converted to harmless gases, right? Now, what if we use a leaded petrol? The lead in the petrol is going to inactivate the metal. For that reason, we are trying to avoid using the lead petrol. We have to definitely use unleaded petrol. This is the important measure we have to take, right? Now, if you look at the material found in the air, the different kinds of particulate and the gaseous materials present in the air are like this. Particulate material of 10 micrometers, particulate material of 2.5 micrometers, nitrogen dioxide, ozone. As I told you, ozone is a pollutant, a potent pollutant if it is present in the lower atmosphere, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, ammonical compounds, and lead. Pb means lead. So all these are the major um, pollutants that are found in the air. According to the Pollution Control Board, the air quality is assessed based on the presence of these particulate matter as well as gases. If you can see here, if the air is polluted, if the air is containing a particulate matter more than 250, then that quality is called as poor, means the blue, the yellow zone you can see. Depending on the amount of particulate matter and the amount of polluted gases present, a particular color is given to this. If you can look at this yellow one, if the particulate matter is more than 250 and if the nitrogen oxide is more than 180 and ozone is more than 169, 170 and odd, here such quality or the such air is called as a poorer quality. And if you can see here, good quality air will have a particulate matter less than 50 micrometers, nitrogen oxide less than 40, ozone less than 50, and so on. So you can see here, depending on the material, the harmful materials present in the air quality index is given. According to the air quality index, if the material, if the air in our surroundings is having very less amounts of particulate matter and nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxide, etc., a green color will be shown. You can also check in the web. Just you can open one app. You have so many apps these days. You can open an app and you can check the quality of air in your surroundings. And it should be green in color in general. If not, this pale green, this satisfactory should be the one. If the color shows yellow and red, that means the quality of air is very, very highly toxic in nature. So Environmental Protection Agency will give such indication chart that helps us understand the quality of air in a given area. You can try this actually. You can use an app. With the help of the app, you can actually find out, check the quality of air in your surroundings. Now, let's talk a bit about the noise pollution. What is this noise pollution? What are the major sources of noise pollution? Why are we, what are the measures we can take in order to reduce the noise pollution? What is noise, first of all? What is noise? A noise is any unpleasant sound. Any unpleasant sound to our ears can be called as noise. Now, noise pollution has become a major, you know, it has been increasing in every city or a town. The bigger the city, the bigger the function and the greater the noise. This is the situation. Now, what happens if there is noise? Does it really matter? Yes, it matters a lot. Let us see how noise pollution will impact the human health. First of all, we'll talk about why noise pollution is included in the Air Pollution and Prevention Act. We should know that our environmental protection acts are given. According to that, the Act of Air Pollution was enacted in the year 1981. Act of Air Pollution was given in the year 1981, but it was amended in the year 1987. Amendment means change, modification of the existing law. So according to the new amendment or according to the modification in 1987, noise is also included under air pollution. Can you tell me the reason why noise pollution is included in air pollution? It is simple. It is because noise, the sound also needs a medium. Sound travels through air, and that is the reason noise has been included in the air pollution. How do we measure the sound? Sound is measured in terms of decibels. Every organism has a minimum decibels to be, has a range of hearing capability. So it can be from 10 decibels or 20 decibels to some range up to 150 decibels. That is a threshold actually for humans especially. So noise is any kind of unwanted sound. Noise pollution has been included in air pollution according to the amendment, and the Amendment of Air Pollution Act was done in the year 1987. Originally, Air Pollution Act was enacted in the 1981, but later it was modified in 1987. According to this amendment, noise is included in the air pollution. And how do we measure the noise? Noise is measured. Sound is measured in terms of decibels, right? Decibels. Let us see the range of human ear. The range of human ear is from 0 decibels to 120 or 130 decibels. This is the maximum sound we can hear, and this is the minimum 0. Okay. And this range is true for middle frequencies, that is 1 to 2 kilohertz kind of frequency sound. This range 0 decibels to 120 decibels. If for lower and higher frequencies, the dynamic is narrow. All sounds above 90 decibels are damaging the inner ear and even doing irreversible damage above 120 decibels. Any sound above 90 decibels is causing damage to the inner ear, and the damage caused will be irreversible if it is beyond 120 decibels. So the range of human hearing is from 0 decibels to 120 decibels, and the threshold will be at 120 decibels. Let's look at the chart of this sound pollution. So are you aware of this noisometer? So maybe in your primary school, your teacher must have displayed this noisometer in your class to check what is the noise level of the classroom. Based on the noise level, she will give that particular color to that particular group of people. So this is called as a noisometer, which you must be aware in your primary classes. Now like that, here we have a scale that helps us understand the different levels of noise that to measure the different levels of sounds. You can see in the chart, a healthy normal hearing threshold is 0. Healthy normal hearing threshold is 0. That means 0 decibels should be audible. That is where we start. When the leaves sway due to the breeze, when the leaves flutter, the fluttering of leaves, the sound they cause is 10 decibels. Whispering, 20 to 30 decibels. A quiet office, 50 decibels. And a normal conversation like you and me sitting and conversing with each other, it should be of 60 decibels, right? So here in the chart, it is clearly mentioned that normal conversation, the decibel should be 60. And if it is a heavy traffic, when you're moving in a road, it will be noisy, or a noisy restaurant, it should be 80 decibels. So can you tell me what could be the decibels of our classroom? Of course, it matters with teacher and without teacher. So if I am correct, Abhirup Shaw's decibel should be 150. Yes. And yes. So now you can see here the levels of sound here. When it is below 10, it is faint. When it is below 50, it is quiet. When it is 80, when it reaches 80 decibels, it is loud. And when it is beyond 110, it is very loud. And a jet engine or a firecracker, it is 150 decibels. So these are the levels of sound that we do measure. And we should be aware of the fact that more in general, the sound that comes out during normal conversation or during classroom interaction should be not more than 60 or 70 decibels. If it is more than 80 decibels, it is called as loud noise. And if it is beyond 90, it will cause some kind of disturbance to our ears, some kind of damage to our ears. And another important factor is that a person being exposed to noise pollution depends on the kind of damage, the extent to which the damage is caused also depends on two factors. How long a person is exposed to the given sound. So you can see here, for every 3 decibels, the limit of exposure will be decreased. With the increase of every 3 decibels over 90 decibels, the exposure time, the safety exposure time is reduced to half. You can see 85 decibels exposure is safe up to 8 hours, 88 decibels safe up to 4 hours, and 91 decibels is safe up to 2 hours only. Central Pollution Control Board has given certain rules and regulations. This is the limit of noise that can be generated. In an industrial area, it should be 75 decibels during daytime and 70 during nighttime. Commercial area, 65 decibels and 55 decibels at night. Residential areas, the noise generated should be 55 and 45. And in a silent zone, the noise generated should be not more than 50 or 40, depending on the day and night. This is the given chart by the Central Pollution Control Board. But I don't think so we are able to really follow these things. Noise pollution is a double-edged sword. Why do we call noise pollution as a double-edged sword? That is because when a person is exposed briefly to extremely high sound levels beyond 120 decibels, his eardrum might be damaged permanently, and which leads to impairing of the hearing ability. So here we talk about two cases, two extreme cases. One is a person is all of a sudden exposed to very high sound levels for a very shorter period, for a brief period. Example, exposure to 150 decibels due to takeoff of jet plane or rocket. So until then the person was living in a quite noise-free area, but all of a sudden he was exposed to this 150 decibels due to the takeoff of a jet plane. In this case, his eardrums will be damaged and it may lead to permanent hearing loss, impairing the hearing ability permanently. This is one case. And the second case, most of the times, the second case is applicable for all of us because in the second case, chronic exposure, chronic means long-term exposure to relatively lower noise levels of cities. So suppose your house is located in the middle of it is a commercial area, suppose, or your school is located beside a road. What will happen? You are constantly used to hearing some honking sounds of vehicles moving. Continuously you're exposed. So here in this case, the level of noise that you're exposed on a daily basis is low, but you have been exposed to this noise continuously for 5 years or 10 years. That means though the noise level is relatively low, if you are exposed to this noise continuously for a very longer period, for a prolonged period, that can also permanently damage the eardrums. So these are the two aspects we should know. Noise pollution is able to permanently cause hearing impairment. There are two cases. In one case, when a person is exposed to high sounds for a shorter period, it may lead to hearing impairment. Second one, when a person is exposed to relatively lower noise levels, but for a shorter, longer periods, that is for a chronic exposure. That case also, it may lead to permanent loss of hearing abilities. And that is the reason noise pollution is called as a double-edged sword. So let us see what kind of impact noise causes on humans. Noise causes sleeplessness, which in turn leads to increased heartbeat, which in turn leads to altered breathing patterns. It is like a cascade of events, one leading to the other. When a person is exposed to noise pollution, it first leads to sleeplessness. Due to sleeplessness, heartbeat rate will increase. The rate at which your heart beating is increases. And not only this, this increase in the heartbeat will in turn alter the breathing pattern of the person. So breathing is central for a human, for a person to survive. And when the breathing pattern is being altered, it will put the human under considerable stress, and stress will take its toll. So noise causes sleeplessness, which in turn induces increase in heartbeat. Increase in heartbeat will in turn lead to alteration in the breathing pattern. And all these three will in turn put a human being under stress. So if you look at the dangerous effects of noise pollution, what measures we can take? Yes, we have to identify the unnecessary sources of noise pollution around us, and we should be able to reduce them immediately without causing any financial loss to anybody. So once we identify that noise pollution is causing a lot of problems to humans, what can we do? Immediately try to identify what are the sources of noise in and around you. Out of all these sources, how many you can really avoid immediately without causing any kind of financial loss or anything. And reduction, if it is a household, if it is a domestic front, we can try to reduce the noise pollution by taking our own individual measures. But if it is an industry runs, so many machines keep running, and these machines, we cannot stop the running of the machine. So what should be done if at an industrial level? At an industrial level, sound absorbent material should be used in order to stop the noise reaching to other places. That means industry may, wherever there is a source of noise pollution, in order to prevent the traveling of this noise to rest of the places from one point to another place, we should be able to use sound absorbent materials. Or you can also obstruct the movement of the sound by creating muffling zones. Muffling zones. So how do we explain it? Is suppose there is an industry like a steel plant or any other industry. It causes air pollution. It also causes sound pollution. So in general, any industry is supposed to have a 3 to 5 kilometers of green belt around it. That means they have to grow so much of plantation around the industry so that these trees can stop the movement of the dust or the sound. Especially we are talking about the sound here. It can obstruct the movement of the sound from this location, from the source of noise to other points. And such green belts are called as green mufflers. Such green belts which helps in obstruction of sounds from industries to domestic places are called as green mufflers. And in certain cases like theaters and all, for example, you have a home theater at your place, but still the sound should not be passed to other rooms. So what do? They use sound absorbent material. They coat the walls with sound absorbent material. So usage of sound absorbent material will help in stopping the movement of the sound. At the same time, green mufflers in industries. So here I would like to talk about the diatomaceous earth. Sound absorbing material or soundproof material that is used at a household level is made up of diatomaceous earth. So do you know diatomaceous earth? It is the silicated deposits of the diatoms. So we have learnt about diatoms. Diatoms will, after the death of the diatom, the silicated shells, they are getting deposited in the seabed, and this deposit is called as diatomaceous earth, which is having so many applications. And one important application is it can be acting as a sound absorbent material. Okay. Now, what can we do in order to reduce the noise pollution? We have to strictly follow the laws laid by the government in relation to noise pollution. And these laws should be strictly enforced by the government. These are the two things we have to do. Follow the rules. Don't break the rules. Second one, timings after which loudspeakers cannot be played. So suppose if it is a worship place, or if it is some other place where uh, playing of loudspeaker is required, you cannot avoid playing a loudspeaker. You have to take permission first of all, and the second thing is you have to play the loudspeaker in a fixed span of time. Suppose morning 8 o'clock to evening 4 o'clock. That's it. You're not supposed to play the loudspeaker even if it is required beyond the given timings. Permissible sound levels of crackers and of loudspeakers. So even though you're having a permission to play the loudspeaker, you should definitely limit the sound. You cannot exactly go for a full extent. And second thing is when the crackers are able to generate up to 150 decibels, which are having a potential to cause hearing impairment. So crackers also should be used in such a way which are having permissible sound levels. Very high noise creating crackers should not be used. Delimitation of horn-free zones around hospitals and schools. So wherever there is no requirement of horn, please do not use horn. Honking is an offense. If you know, in other countries, honking is an offense. Only during emergency, they actually blow the horn. But here, horn is abused, if we have to say, in our country. Delimitation. So in and around schools and hospitals, we are not supposed to use the horns. So this is all about the noise pollution. I hope this session was of help for you. Thank you very much for your patient listening. And in next class, we will discuss about the air pollution, a case study in Delhi. Thank you.